The title of our study is Made with Care, Social Interaction, Labor Standards, and the Social Relations at Work in the Supply Chain of the Mobile Phone Industry, a longitudinal case study of Fairphone. Okay, the research context. This study emerges from the following observations. Firstly, the rising of social enterprises, which are characterized by hybrid organizations as a new actor in employment relations and a game changer in global value chains. Secondly, the birth of the participative paradigm to labor-related CSR governance as an alternative to the compliance-based paradigm. Thirdly, the emergence of the outside-in approach as institutional experimentation in improving labor standards and social relations at work in emerging economies. For example, the Bangladesh Accord and Alliance. For example, in the case of Chinese firms, maybe the optimal the HRM practice brought by the foreign investment will help to improve the level of the HRM, human resource management in local enterprises. So that is the outside-in approach we mean here. So the research question is that to what extent does the participative paradigm to labor-related CSR governance with a social enterprise as a lead firm improve labor standards and social relations at work in a supplier? The profile of the case. When it was founded in 2009, the Fairphone was a campaign to raise awareness in Netherlands about the connection between smartphones and the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So they invited the Dutch public to develop collaboratively a Fairphone, a fair smartphone, namely a phone that would be conflict manual free. By 2013, Fairphone had morphed from an awareness campaign to a social enterprise. As a social enterprise, Fairphone generated commercial revenues from the production and the sale of mobile phones rather than from donations. Furthermore, Fairphone employed commercial revenues to maintain investments in social projects. For example, a working conditions improvement project in China, the one we will talk about later. China has been the world's mobile phone manufacturing hub for decades, where labor rights were often violated. Accordingly, Fairphone decided to contract a Chinese supplier to assemble mobile phones to gain access to supplier employment relations system. As a medium-sized Chinese supplier, Guohong agreed to produce small batches of the mobile phones for Fairphone. Furthermore, besides the use of conflict manual-free component parts, Fairphone and Guohong also reached an agreement on the improvement of labor standards and social relations at work. So we established the theoretical framework based on three approaches. Firstly, the institutional logics approach, because this study is concerned with a particular type of social enterprise, which is exemplified by Fairphone, namely the ones transformed from non-profit organizations. Such social enterprises are likely drawing on the institutional logics theory. Such social enterprises are likely to maintain the centrality of the social welfare logic, which is inherited from non-profit organizations, avoiding reducing it to subordination. As such, the prescriptions of the commercial logic are conceived to serve the prescription of the social welfare logic. So, therefore, with the following hypothesis is proposed that the social enterprises transformed from non-profit organizations are likely to adopt the integrated approach to implementing CSR strategies. That means Such type of social enterprise is likely to incorporate social CSR strategies into organizational structures, policies, and practices rather than separating CSR strategies and business strategies. Secondly, based on the traditional global value chain governance theory and its extended form in the employment relations study, we propose that the influence of the labor-related CSR governance by a lead firm is unlikely to be directly influence the supplier employment relations system, but such influence is moderated by a value chain governance pattern, which is determined by the configuration of task requirements. Thirdly, the resource dependence approach. As we have, as indicated above, for the social enterprises transformed from nonprofit organizations, the prescriptions of the commercial logic are likely to serve the one of the social welfare logic. So, forming the integrated approach. Accordingly, when CSR strategies are manifested in labor-related CSR governance, the make or buy decision is expected to serve it. In accordance with the resource dependence theory, a social enterprise is supported to internalize crucial resources to transit a value chain governance pattern from market governance to mutual dependence and even a higher level of explicit coordination to improve the influence of the CSR governance on supplier employment relations system. That's why we propose the last hypothesis, that is, the social enterprises transformed from nonprofit organizations are likely to change value chain governance patterns by internalizing crucial resources to improve the influence. So here is the integrated theoretical framework. Research design. This study draws on a longitudinal single case study. The fieldwork was completed by the first author between 2013 and 2015. Data was collected and triangulated in 4 ways. Firstly, the semi-structured interviews. Secondly, workers' survey. Thirdly, participatory observation. And lastly, the document reviews. So the hybridity of the commercial and social welfare logics. As a social enterprise, Fairphone was characterized by the hybridity of the commercial and social welfare logics. Fairphone prioritized the value creation, delivery, and capture for all stakeholders over than that only for shareholders. Fairphone followed a sustainable business model, creating, delivering, and capturing the values for stakeholders without the depletion of the social, natural, and economic capital it relies on. As indicated by Fairphone's slogan, produce a seriously cool phone, putting social values first. Fairphone's sustainable business model was exemplified by labor-related CSR governance. Prior to the production of the first batch of mobile phones, Fairphone carried out social audits at Guohong to get a baseline understanding of 2 aspects. Firstly, what the current status of the wages and benefits, working hours, and working conditions in Guohong. Secondly, how should the above aspects be improved? Instead of carrying out only 1 or 2 or 3 day snapshot or social audits at Guohong, Fairphone turned to cooperate with local actors to conduct the all year round social compliance consultation, training, and monitoring. So to implement the CSR strategies, Fairphone adopted the integrated approach, incorporating the social CSR strategies into organizational structures, policies, and practices. Fairphone followed the participative paradigm, attaching great importance to the long-term and trust-based relationship with Guohong, and Fairphone and Guohong jointly financed the so-called Worker Welfare Fund, which is the institutional experimentation we attach great importance here. For every mobile phone sold, Fairphone and Guohong each invested $2.5 in the WWF. In particular, after the sales of the first batch of mobile phones, the capital of the fund reached $125,000. For the sales of the second batch of the mobile phones, Guohong once again matched Fairphone's $2.5 contribution for every mobile phone sold. Eventually, with the production run of 35,000 mobile phones, the fund grew by $175,000. The beneficiaries of the fund was the entire workforce, not limited to workers on the Fairphone production line. The potential expenditure options of the fund varied from a bonus payout to training and development and then to leisure activities. The fund was governed by the board made up of 3 board members, 1 appointed by Fairphone, 1 appointed by Guohong, and 1 elected by Guohong's worker representatives. The 3 board members were jointly responsible for managing and distributing the fund. In each quarter, 18 work representatives, which were elected by workers, voted on suggested spending proposals to narrow it down to a maximum of 3 options to be presented to the WWF board. During the review session, the board approved or disapproved one proposal. Okay, this figure illustrates that the WWF was governed by pyramid structure of workers, worker representatives, and the WWF board, where elections linked each level. The design and the execution of the fund were intended to not only benefit labor standards by distributing the fund, but also empower workers with a channel and agenda to achieve workplace democracy, enabling not only the election of worker representatives, but also the labor management consultation concerning the use of the fund. Okay, Guohong's labor standards and social relations at work. With the continuous execution of the WWF, Fairphone succeeded in raising workers' wages at Guohong. In effect, Fairphone was faced with dual missions of not only reducing overtime work at Guohong, but also maintaining or even raising work wages. We'll know that it's in most workplace of Chinese suppliers, the Chinese workers are just be paid by the minimum wage. So if they don't work overtime, the wage level cannot be increased. So that means that you cannot just reducing overtime work, because it means that it will reducing the wages level at the same time. So this dilemma had been more prominent since Guohong experienced great business loss due to the deprivation of brand authorization by Changhong in June 2014. Changhong is the major customer in China for Guohong. So the Changhong authorized the band use for Guohong. So if the band authorization has been deprived, so that means it's a big business loss for Guohong. A dramatic decline in orders led workers to be concerned with insufficient overtime work and falling wages, thereby triggering a turnover tsunami. The execution of the WWF played a crucial role in preventing the deterioration of labor standards at Guohong. The fund was refilled through the joint contributions of Fairphone and Guohong, which were linked to the sales of the second batch of mobile phones, totaling up to an additional sum of $175,000. In early October 2014, worker representatives suggested a new spending proposal to the WWF board. According to this proposal, if the average wage of production and quality check departments was lower than $1,800, each worker would receive $600 as compensation. Furthermore, If the average wage was higher than $1,800, the compensation standard would be reduced to $400. This wage compensation plan started at the end of October 2014 and continued until the fund was exhausted. So value chain governance. At the startup stage, the partnership between Fairphone and Guohong was embedded into the market value chain governance without significant explicit coordination. Fairphone adopted the original design manufacturing model. So the ODM model spared Fairphone a need to invest financial resources into the creation of mobile phones from scratch, master the technical and capacity involved in the mobile phone development process, and develop an organizational structure to govern functional departments. However, since evolving into the growth stage, Fairphone had attempted to transit the value chain governance pattern from market governance to mutual dependence. After the production and sale of the first two batches of mobile phones, Fairphone reconsidered the production model for Fairphone 2, abandoning a licensed out mobile phone design and design its own mobile phone. With an independent mobile phone design, Fairphone was able to create more leverage in the mobile phone development process. Although accordingly, Fairphone was expected to more interfere with supplier employment relation system and introduce sub-suppliers outside the existing value chain, rather than having the Guohong control sub-supplier selection. However, Fairphone ambition had to bow to the market pressure. Participating in Fairphone 2 project implied that Guohong should accommodate a distinct mobile phone design. Guohong, however, had been overwhelmed by putting itself from help itself from business losses. Guohong fully invested financial, technical, and management capabilities into designing its own mobile phone as a remedy for the deprivation of brand authorization by Changhong in 2014. Eventually, Fairphone partnership with Guohong come to an end. So this is the final part, our major conclusions. So I can stop here. So thanks.